Welcome to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and I happen to have today a very, very good friend and the founder of Human Advantage, Eric Guthoff. Eric, how you doing today?
Great, Dale. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you having me.
One of the things I love about, I've known Eric for a little over a year now, but on these shows, I always like to learn some more things. So Eric, where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school, and how did you get into this sports world?
Yeah, I got into it not the traditional path, but I grew up in Yonkers, New York, and then Springfield, New Jersey till I was about 8, and then I moved to Ohio. My dad got transferred, and so I guess I really grew up in Ohio from 8 through college.
Okay.
Went to high school in Westerville, Ohio. Went to college in Miami of Ohio, and I studied zoology, believe it or not, as a pre-med major. So I was planning to go to med school, and they told me I should study zoology to get into med school, and I followed directions. So I was accepted into Ohio State, and the story goes that I love to travel, wanted to travel the country, and pitched the American Cancer Society to go to all the baseball parks and educate kids about smokeless tobacco. That launched the Great American Ballpark Tour. So me and two of my friends just graduated college. The summer after that was summer 98. Traveled the country, went to all the ballparks, and raised a bunch of money. Had the time of our lives. Then I did a year of med school, and then I realized I was a lot more interested in what I had done that past summer. So I pivoted, and that's what really got me into sport. Is I would say the ballpark tour, and then I've always been a sports kind of fanatic. I collected cards and memorabilia when I was a kid, and I turned it into a business when I was in middle school. So I was an entrepreneur at a young age, and
Yes.
sport and entrepreneurship are kind of interwoven throughout my life now.
So entrepreneur state of mind. I mean, that's a pretty. It's amazing when you first told me that story about the baseball parks. I mean, that is pretty incredible. That's a lot of chutzpah. Of course,
Yeah.
medical school is going to pale in comparison to that. What's better than that? So how were you able to swing that? What was how did you use your entrepreneurial skills to convince them and allow you to do that?
I don't know, Dale. I don't know. I'll tell you, like, if you fast forward to this era of sponsorship and how big the business has gotten,
Yeah.
I don't think we could have done it. I think it was at a time where, I was resilient, I was convincing, I was a good person, and the American Cancer Society gave me and two of my friends their brand.
Wow.
To travel the country, which is, we didn't have contracts or agreements. It was kind of go out and raise some money for us,
Right.
and we did. And so I just think I built a business out of a hobby when I was a kid, and I think that's just in my DNA. I look for opportunities to build things out of other things, and I think the sports cards business led to the ballpark tour, and the ballpark tour led to my career and the companies that I've been a part of and founded in my career.
Well, I mean, one, you're a good guy, but you're very much a people person. So that has permeated throughout. So all right. So you left medical school, and then what did you do? How did you get into the sports world? And I know the Olympic movement.
Yeah. Well, my dad's an executive search person. He had his own company at that time that I left med school. And I remember just going to his office and just sending out resumes and cover letters, like, hundreds of them, trying to get into sports. I remember I interviewed with the Columbus Clippers to be the assistant to the GM of the Yankees minor league AAA team at the time. And, I had that, and I had another opportunity to get into kind of interactive digital marketing. I joined an agency, and I was working there and still sending out resumes to get into sports.
Right.
And I got an opportunity to be an intern at Octagon, which is a big sports and entertainment agency. Yeah. And so I left the digital marketing firm I was at, left Ohio, drove my car, my Volkswagen Jetta with my stuff in it to my grandparents' house in Yonkers, New York, all the way back to where it began for me. And I lived on their couch for a while I was an intern at Octagon, and that kind of launched my career really in sport.
Wow. Now Octagon was in New York and Florida, right? Were they in Florida or?
Octagon at the time was in Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, was
and
okay.
So I was commuting to Connecticut. They had other offices, DC, I think, but I was in they're in Westport, Norwalk maybe now, but
Okay.
at the time they were right across. For anyone familiar with the area, right across from the WWE headquarters.
Right.
I remember the flag, Exit 9.
I know that area. So all right. So while you're at Octagon, what happened with your sports life? You know, you had some pretty cataclysmic things, or some really good things actually.
Yeah, so I was fortunate. I got an intern. I did a whole bunch of things, but I eventually got added to the team that was working with IBM on the Olympics. So IBM was a global sponsor of the Olympic Games for the Sydney 2000 Olympic and Paralympic Games. It was potentially their last, and they were going all in, and had some really amazing consumer and business-to-business programs. And as part of me working with them, I had the opportunity to go to Sydney.
Wow.
For almost a year. I was in Sydney, Australia, living in Darling Harbour.
Wow.
And I remember it was such a great experience to do that. We had a team of 4,000 total people working with IBM on the Olympics. I remember our wrap party. It was amazing. But, you mentioned earlier relationships. Like I was working with all these people and learning about how important relationships were when you're part of a big team, and how you kind of got to work together, and how the team kind of comes together to pull off a massive partnership with the Olympic Games in Australia. And so it was a learning experience for me, but so much fun. I remember coming back. I remember my boss at Octagon said that my career had just peaked at 23, and that it'll never get better than the Olympics in Sydney. And I remember thinking like, maybe I got to prove this guy wrong and do some other things in my career that are, if not better, as good as Sydney was. And it was great. Sydney was a great experience.
Well, but Eric, I mean, again, the audience listening, I've known you. I mean, traveling, baseball parks, the Olympics. Man, you've negotiated as an entrepreneur some pretty incredible gigs. And so then what was next? All right, so you knew a lot of people, you developed a lot of relationships, and what happened next?
I was doing that for 3 or 4 or 5 years, working at Octagon on different partnerships, not just IBM. It was their last Olympics, so I moved on to work with Nextel and MasterCard and some other clients. And I kind of got into horse racing. So one of my clients was a sponsor of horse racing, and I was really interested they had a sales model for their sponsors called group purchasing, where they brought their sponsors' products to the industry. I thought it was really forward thinking and innovative. So I joined the League of Horse Racing and the Breeders' Cup for a few years and ran their sponsorship team. It's actually the 2 years we had a Triple Crown contender. It was Funny Side and Smarty Jones back to back. Neither won. Wow. But those were the 2 years, and it was great. But I missed the Olympics. I missed global sport. I wasn't doing as much out of the country, so I left the horse racing league and went to IMG, another big agency, and I was there for about 5 years working on the World Cup and the Olympic in the consulting group. So World Cups and Olympics, working with brands. DHL in Torino, Italy. I was there for a bit. And then the big project I did there was I moved to China for 2 years.
Wow.
Never had been, and I moved for 2 years to be seconded by Johnson & Johnson. So IMG let J&J borrow me for 2 years and lead operations for everything they did in China around the Olympics.
Wow.
So it was a massive, we built a team of 1,000 people.
Wow.
All from all over the world. That I was responsible for building that team and for making sure everything we did on site came together. And it was everyone says like, I've always been interested in, because I was a zoology major, should I go back and get my MBA? Because I love that. I love being in school. But people said your MBA will never beat what you did in China for 2 years. So there's your MBA for you. And it was the richest experience a young guy could have. Just kind of learning how to do business in a country where you're the minority. You're not the majority, and it's hard in some ways. You don't speak the language. It was hard.
What parts of China were you? I'd been there for a little bit. What parts of China?
I lived in Beijing. I did a lot of traveling to Shanghai, a little bit Hong Kong, and then personally, I was able to travel quite a bit around Asia, which was really exciting. So, but I was stationed in Beijing for 2007 and 2008.
So do you ever recognize how incredible your career was up to that point? I mean, you've had some amazing people. You know, just hearing you talk about it, said, "Whoa, this guy's had 3 career peaks in his career, and he's just getting started." So you did that.
Thanks.
You developed some experience, leadership. What do you do next?
So my client at Johnson and Johnson, who had the idea to second me for 2 years, he and I kept talking about how Johnson and Johnson was non-endemic to sport, and there were dozens of agencies that were a part of this Olympic team, and every agency was doing great work, but they needed a guide. They needed someone to sit in on their side of the table, really helping them navigate
Right.
the sports space versus just all these other agencies who couldn't by themselves. They weren't neutral. They couldn't become a guide. And so it gave us the idea to launch a company called Glideslope. And we did that in 2010, a boutique advisory firm in global sport focused on helping non-endemic brands like a Dow Chemical, a Citibank, a Bridgestone, a J&J, like really how do you navigate the world of sport? How do you understand if it's the right business driver for you? And if it is, and your customers or consumers will care about you partnering with a sport or a property, how do you leverage it throughout the organization? So it was kind of a management consulting approach
Right.
to helping non-endemic brands leverage global sport. And we built that as founders, you know, with our own money, never took any outside money, and built it for 7 years on our own.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. That's pretty incredible.
It was great.
And so, what was next? What you learn there, and where did you want to take your career from that point?
Yeah. So at Glideslope, I was in charge of a lot of things. You know, you wear a lot of hats when you're building a business, but I really kind of embraced. We really tried as entrepreneurs for the first couple of years. This is, I think, a good learning for those who are listening. You know, we kind of split up everything the first couple of years amongst the leadership, and then we realized it'd be better to look at where you're each good and have you focus all on that
Right.
versus do a little of everything. So my areas of focus evolved into business development, business operations, and people and culture.
Right.
So I kind of shepherded all those for us, you know, not by myself, but I was kind of leading them for the business and
Right.
company. And I really saw the difference that the people culture side made to our success.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what kind of launched into what I'm doing now. But, you know, we were known at Glideslope to have the best people, the best culture. We were very intentional about it. We built, you know, things like the flight plan, which was like the heartbeat of the company. It's kind of the guiding document of the business from an emotional perspective. We had the rules of the road, which is how we wanted the company to feel when you're a part of it. And
Right.
things that we want to, you know, observe, you know, like, you know, best intentions, assume best intentions. So we had all these things that we were very intentional about related to people and culture, and I really saw it make a difference.
Yeah.
And so when we were acquired in 2017 by a private equity backed agency, global agency, and I just knew like I would help integrate the business, but I just knew I didn't want to be part of a bigger global company. It was good for a lot of our team, but for me, I wanted to keep on this entrepreneurial journey, and I saw opportunity to keep working on the people culture side.
Well, see, and that's, I mean, that's your sweet spot, you know, as I've gotten to know you. I mean, you're just extraordinary at developing relationships. I don't know anybody who's better than you at developing relationships.
Thanks, Neil.
So, you know, we're now at the halfway point. Eric, we're going to take a commercial, and we're going to talk about Human Advantage, this group that you founded, and you know, I'm part of the team, and it's really exciting where it's been, where it's going, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So we will be back on Entrepreneur's State of Mind right after this commercial break.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Welcome back to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell. We're talking to Eric Guthoff, who is the founder of Human Advantage, but has had one of the most amazing careers in sports that I know of. So we're just getting to talk about Human Advantage. So he's seen the Olympics, he's done things with baseball, and now Human Advantage. And so Eric, and I'm one of the consultants as part of Human Advantage. So Eric, when you founded Human Advantage, what were you thinking? What was your vision?
Yeah, it's really about a gap in the marketplace and seeing where there's value that isn't being brought. And so when I mentioned before the break that my company Glideslope was acquired, and when I left, I started working for an executive search firm called Grace Blue. Great company, family founded, boutique search firm focused in the media and agency spaces. Okay. And so naturally we thought we could make a connection between the media agency worlds and the sports world, which you can. Mm-hmm. And I was out trying to build their business in the whole ecosystem of sports. So think about sports and sports betting and esports and sports tech, sports media, leagues, teams, agencies, you name it. And what I found doing that for about a year and a half is that the acquiring of talent is very important, and it's a piece of a much bigger puzzle. And at least in the sports ecosystem, I found that there wasn't a resource to help these organizations in the bigger puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was all focused really on a lot of executive search and finding talent. Mm-hmm. And so that gave me the idea to form Human Advantage as a advisory firm that would partner with organizations in the sports ecosystem and help them become leaders in people culture and really differentiate themselves to their clients, to their investors, to their employees, to future employees. And it was pre-pandemic, and it was before this even became more and more talked about, but it was already back in 2019 when I started Human Advantage and left Grace Blue. It was really starting to gain momentum already. This idea of how you can be a leader in people culture, and that makes a big difference.
Right. The timing was perfect, really, because people value and understand the importance of people more than ever before. And so, it's been wonderful to be on this journey with you. And we've had some pretty major clients in a short period of time in professional soccer and some other places. So talk about the experience. How's it going with Human Advantage?
Yeah, well, the idea was really, if anyone's familiar with the Marvel hero, superhero, Avenger concept, where, the Avengers are a superhero team that come together and work together to defeat, evil. And I kind of took the concept of trying to find Avengers that could work across people and culture. So, what I did is there are people that are experts in DEI. There are people that are experts in HR. There are people that are experts in leadership. We have someone that deals in organizational flow and culture. And the idea was to blend all these people like you would a superhero team to partner with a client so that they can tap into this team as it might be needed. So a lot of our work is project-based, and we'll focus on one particular thing, like how do we help an organization build an inclusive culture, specific project, key deliverables. And then, another might be, how do we help a newly formed organization build a strong foundation in HR? Another might be, how do we develop managers into leaders of an organization? Those are all kind of project driven. And then we also have a model where you can tap into the entire team as an Avenger team and use us as a resource kind of surrounding your leadership team. So our clients are mostly the leadership, including HR, of an organization, and we become a resource that they can tap into and a partner that they can count on to help them as they grow.
And providing executive coaching as well too is a big part of it. And so, have you been surprised at how well received Human Advantage has been so quickly and it's so early in its formulation?
Well, I've been surprised. I mean, we waged through a pandemic, which was challenging, and that was it's not over. It's still going on. We're just starting to go from doing a lot virtually to doing some virtual, some in person. And that's been great. I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. I knew there was a need, for this. I think that it's just getting started. I think companies are just starting to realize that developing their people and paying attention to culture is really important to be successful and sustainable. You can't grow sustainably if you're not paying attention to people development and culture development. And at our heart, that's really what we're doing: people development and culture development.
Well, our audience includes people running businesses of all sizes, from very small to very large, and what kinds of things should they be looking at that a Human Advantage can help a sports organization deal with?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing is it's important to look at all this holistically. Like culture is connected to DEI, which is connected to HR and people, which is connected to leadership, and all of it's connected to your business. So my biggest piece of advice is to ask yourself the question, do you have a business strategy? And if the answer is yes, which it should be, then you should ask, do you have a people and culture strategy that are going to help you succeed with your business strategy? And if the answer is no, then you should call us, because we can help you think about the people culture strategy and prioritize your efforts against what's going to make the biggest impact to your people and your business. And so that's really the overarching question is, do I have a people culture strategy in place that is going to help me fuel the business vision and strategy being successful?
And the name Human Advantage is just so perfect for that. And it really is extraordinary how little attention many sports organizations pay to their people, other than the highly paid athletes that they have, and that their people can make the difference between being extraordinarily successful or being mediocre or even failing. What are some of the
changing them?
It's amazing. It really is. You want to talk about, you don't have to mention specific clients, but some of the projects that Human Advantage has been working on, over the last year.
So we a lot of our projects lead into other projects. So for one client, we helped them. They were thinking about doing a training in DE&I, and we really, what they needed was to get leadership aligned and educated on the journey they were going to go on as an organization, and then build a strategy. So, DEI should be something that lives and breathes throughout an organization every day. And in order to do that, you can't just do a training. And so we worked with a professional soccer team to help them create a very customized DEI strategy and kind of roadmap for where they would want to go and how to infuse it throughout the company. And now that's leading into some other things. So, how DEI might be connected to developing leaders, like that's our next conversation. And, they had a DEI council that was formed and they want to evolve it. So a lot of our work is strategic and advisory, but it leads to other things that kind of flow out of it. We've done some workshops that led to executive coaching. We've done some HR strategic work and building kind of an HR strategy that led to DEI work. And so I think it just goes back to that interconnected group of people that can be a resource on these things and getting to know the organizations. I would say maybe half our work in 2021 has been around the kind of space of developing leaders. People are realizing that it's very costly to keep finding new people.
Yep.
And so it's better to focus on developing your people into leaders of the company. And even we don't only develop leaders. We also work with new and junior staff or new staff to an organization and help them build some kind of the basic foundations for business. So I just think that very little attention was put on this side of the business until recently, and it's just kind of like a snowball rolling down a hill. And those that are doing it are really differentiating themselves. They talk about, I'll end with, they talk about the Great Resignation. Well, the Great Resignation is happening because people are looking for this. They're looking for a place where there is a strong culture and they feel they can be developed and there is collaboration. And so, I think what we do goes hand in hand with, being successful in keeping your people and finding great people.
Well, and one of my last clients, or one of my last interviews was around this digital company that was talking about more and more companies are using the digital platform to hire and identify new people. And these folks were young folks, and they were saying, the pandemic got people to think about their quality of life, and that companies, and that's why they've resigned and other things. And so I think the human advantage, if you will, is that we're helping companies value employees in new and exciting ways. One of the things that we talk about, Eric, a lot is reboarding. This idea of they've been part of the company, but they're reboarding after the pandemic, coming back into the office, and that looks very different, and leadership needs to look very different. And so it's really exciting, some of the things that Human Advantage is working on.
And companies are struggling with not just like how many days should you be back in the office, but what do you do when you're in the office versus out, and how do you be efficient and productive? And so this whole reboarding concept, it's a whole new way of working, and there's no blueprint to figure it out. And so it's kind of combining a lot of thinking and best practices, and we're doing that with a lot of clients as well. That's important,
Well, we're almost at the end of time, but one of the things that Human Advantage, and I've been involved with this, with the diversity, equity, and inclusion, is I remember years ago, I was looking at the Sports Business Journal and looking at the 30 under 30, and there were like 2 African Americans and like 2 women in that whole thing. And so the sports industry, is as diverse as it may be on the field or on the court, really hasn't been. And so Human Advantage has been playing a real role in helping companies understand all aspects of diversity. And it's been going very well and being very well received. I would venture to say Human Advantage is becoming one of the leading sports DEI consulting firms out there, wouldn't you say, Eric?
Yeah, and I think it's because we approach it with a strategic lens, and we approach it understanding how it's connected to all these other areas of a business, and that's, I think, our special sauce. Is there are great companies out there, but our approach is really making sure that the DEI work done is sustainable and it's a journey.
Excellent. Well, we're at the end of time. Eric, if a company wants to get a hold of you or an executive, what's the website, or how do they get a hold of Human Advantage?
Yeah, so you can, the email is ahumanadvantage.com. So you can email me, it's eric.guthoff@ahumanadvantage.com, or if it's easier, you can email hello@ahumanadvantage.com, and that would be a way, that's on the website as well. That would be a way to get in touch and then start a conversation.
Wonderful. Well, Eric, thanks so much for your time. And audience, I want to thank you once again for watching Entrepreneur State of Mind. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and we will see you next week. Eric, thanks again. Great conversation. Take care.
Thanks for having me, Dale. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.